Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Welcome to Ambitious, the MBIT podcast. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you.
So, what are we doing here? This is kind of cool because we're doing a split podcast. So, you're creating one. Tell us what your podcast name is.
Chat with the Trio.
Chat with the Trio. And it's around your work in early child care education at Middle Bucks, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we mostly talk also, we've kind of directed it more so away from early childhood and more just in general for anyone. It's more self-improvement based.
Okay.
So that anyone can relate to it.
And so what sorts of things would folks hear if they listen to your podcast?
We talk about stress management, and we broke that into stress management for children and adults, so that relates to everyone. And then we did our development series about all the different developments. But like Addie said, we've reached on that with everyone. And what are we doing
So
now?
it could be taken as like for children, but it also can be like we've put more information into it and done more research that we can reach out for adults as well. We've also done or will be doing professional development. So just touching on like how we've developed professionally and just how you can add on to that. It's all just like showing like how we've done it, how statistically you can do it, and how realistically you can do it.
Yeah,
So
it all is just like self-improvement, not just like mentally, but physically as well. We give a lot of examples and a lot of ways to just help yourself and people around you as well, because you can't help other people without being able to help yourself.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, this series is part of work you're doing for Skills USA. Can you say more about that?
Yes.
So we decided last year, our teacher just put it in our brain, Miss Haney. She just put it in our brain. She was like, what if you guys like did a podcast? And we were like, yeah, I mean, we could. And then we ended up saying it as dates. And we were like, we're going to start, like our next step is to start a podcast. Well, we never really followed through with that until we realized this year that we were like,
It'd be so fun to do that.
It would be fun to do
We're
that.
like,
And we were like,
let's start a podcast.
I know Brianna and I were like, we've always wanted to start a
always wanted
podcast.
to,
Like, it's
so
been
why
our
not
like
do it
childhood
together?
dream, but like we had no idea what to talk about. But we weren't going to do the podcast. Actually, we were gonna like go away from our work, which is not good. And I was like, guys, we can't do that. Like, especially if like we're doing this competition again, we want us to be seen as like professional, and like we want to be seen as what's it called?
We wanted to be seen as someone who
Trustworthy.
Yeah, there you go.
And so I was like, guys, we kind of have to go through with this. Like we said we were going to. It's just right to do that. Plus, it can help with our project this year as well as just like people all throughout the community.
And what is your project this year?
So last year was stress management, so we dug into that even further. In the beginning of our podcast, we did all of like our stress management and last year based like everything that we learned and put that into podcast. And this year it's all social emotional development.
Mostly because
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
because stress management is based sort of around social emotional. Like social emotional is a lot of why we get so stressed, or the
That's
way
just, like, the
when we're
deeper
stressed
part of
we
it.
get
It's deep down into it.
right.
Yeah. So we
When
just
we're
wanted
stressed,
to dig deeper.
our social and emotional development changes. Like how we're acting and how emotional we are changes based on our stress.
Yeah, because all the social emotional is what causes all those like outbreaks and all of
they
all the
feed into each other.
outbursts. They do.
And one of the things that I'm passionate about here at Middle Bucks is building community, because we're not a neighborhood school. We're what's called a consortium school. So there are 4 districts and multiple high schools that send here to Middle Bucks. And so am I correct that you don't go to the same high school? You did not know each other?
None of
We
us
had no clue who each other were.
go to the same high school. We actually met through here. So
Met through here. And so now we've created that community. First started around your interest in early child care education, and now it seems like through Skills USA and through some CTSOs and building that up. Can I ask what, you can answer this in one of 2 ways, but the question is ultimately, what leadership opportunities have you had? Because this podcast for both of us is about leadership. What leadership opportunities have you had here that are unique that you think, or that your friends perhaps wouldn't realize because they didn't come here that you had access to? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I can start, totally. Go ahead. Well, one is just early childhood related, being a teacher. You're not able to be a teacher at a center unless you are 18. So we were able to go 2 years earlier than most people would be able to work in a center because we're in an MBIT.
Because we have our own.
School.
And there's a
Yeah.
required amount of hours that you need to work into a center, and without being here, we would not be earning those hours as quickly, along with all the trainings that we do, which helps push us even further. It gets us higher up. Along with just like Skills USA, like we said, there's all different competitions. Fall leadership was fantastic, and that was a huge like outreach for us to meet new people, become a leader, learn really great skills.
Fall Leadership has a special place in my heart, right? Because there's a big neon sign in our lobby from Fall Leadership that says #ambition. And that was something that the students from Fall Leadership came up with, you know, when I asked them to sort of think about how can we have a tagline or something that sets MBIT apart, and right in the middle of the word ambition are the letters MBIT, which is fabulous. And I clearly see a lot of ambition in the three of you. So we're going to get into the shared podcast content now. So thanks for joining me, and I appreciate you asking me to join you. This has been fun.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We just wanted to talk about first the different levels of leadership that we each hold. So how like we are
We're both officers here in Skills USA. Brianna has a big leadership role as a teacher here in the Little Bucks.
I'm a teacher at Little Bucks. I work at Little Bucks.
So just the different roles and what they mean to you. So we wanted to ask you how your role makes you feel like you and feel complete.
Wow, what a great question. So my role here is the director of Middle Bucks Institute of Technology. So I'm ultimately responsible for everything that happens inside of this building. And so some of the leadership that I'm trying to employ here is giving other people as many opportunities to lead as they would like. And so we had the experience the other day to go and meet with Mr. Judd Pittman. So he's the director of career and technical education for the state of Pennsylvania, for Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so I had the opportunity to bring with me folks that I thought would be good representatives of Middle Bucks. And I wanted a student perspective, a teacher perspective, and an administrative perspective. So I joined the two of you and your teacher, Ms. Haney, and that gave you an opportunity to meet with Mr. Pittman, share your experience. And so that's a good example of, and the same was true for your teacher, Ms. Haney. So that gave everybody involved there a chance to lead up, right? Everybody got the chance to talk to Mr. Pittman. This is somebody who, you know, in terms of Pennsylvania Department of Education, there's a secretary and then there are different bureau chiefs. He's the chief of career and technical ed, which means that you got to have time with him one-on-one or with a small group and really share your experience, which then hopefully leads to evolutions in career and technical education. So I think that's a good example of how I tried to lead. I like to give folks opportunities. There's other examples I'm sure we'll get into as well.
There's many ways that MBIT sets us up really for success and pushes us to be leaders. What is, in the introduction to people coming into our building, new kids coming in, what is your favorite way to outreach to them?
Outreach to the students or outreach to them about leadership?
Both.
Okay. Well, I like to be present, right? I believe that leadership is not only what you do, but how you do it. And I think it's really important to be present as a leader. I think there's a lot of symbolism in leadership. I think that being seen, being present, being available, having an open ear, caring deeply about the people and what's happening where you are, that is all a necessary part of what leadership looks like. And so how do I try to outreach? I think everybody here knows me as the MB guy, which I don't know, I cannot walk down a single hallway here without somebody going, MB, which is actually my line. That's kind of the funny part. They really should be shouting IT, but I hadn't shouted MB yet. So they're just letting me know that they know who I am and that they're familiar with the chant that we do here, which is I shout MB and the students shout
IT.
Now we're talking. And so I try to be, I think that's a good example of the presence that I try to exhibit. And then the other piece to it, I think, is exposure. So people don't know what they don't know. And so letting people know what is philanthropy today, what is Skills USA, what is HOSA, what is DECA, what are the different CTSOs that the students are able to participate in, and then allowing them that opportunity to be leaders. Again, I think it's a good example. I think a good leader has to listen. And so I had heard that this trio was doing a podcast. I had heard you were interested in leadership. And then I get a call that says, hey, we would like student and teacher representatives at this session with the PDE, Pennsylvania Department of Education. It was very easy then for me to know that that group was available to me, right? And so that gave me the opportunity to extend a leadership opportunity beyond that. But that only happened because I was present, because I was in your room, because I was chatting with you, because you were there, because I was listening, and because you're doing something, putting yourselves out there as well. So I think presence and exposure are a big part of trying to make leadership available to as many students as possible. I also think, by the way, not too long ago, I don't know when this is going to air for either of us, because we're sharing this podcast too, which is kind of fun, but we just had our job fair for Home Builders Association. So we had 30 or so different employers that were here. And so creating those opportunities for students to have chances to lead. I think that a school like this, we do a lot of learning by doing, right? Learning by doing is not just hands-on, right? When you go to Little Bucks, you're not just using your hands, you're using all of your knowledge, all of your experience, all of your decision-making, problem-solving skills, all of those, because you never know what's going to happen. Never, right? And if you plan for everything, the thing you didn't plan for is going to be the one that happens,
100%.
right? But you get that chance. You get that chance to be in it. You get that chance to, while you're learning, you get a chance to build that work experience. So now you have real world experience. So I was talking about the Home Builders job fair that we had. And to see the technical skills, of course our students have amazing technical skills, right? Like I can see it. I can walk around here. What's happening in the welding lab across the hall right now, I couldn't do any of that. It's amazing. It's phenomenal, the work that they're doing. Carpentry, the same. Construction engineering, the same. Your lab, the same. It's amazing what you can see going on, right? But then we walk into the job fair, and what did I see? I saw eye contact, like the three of you are giving me right now, right? I saw engagement. I saw a handshake. I saw resumes, right? So that's when I say learning by doing. They're doing the whole thing there, right? It's not just, I know how to, and this is going to be oversimplified, but I know how to swing a hammer. It's not about that. It's that I'm building employability skills and I'm building technical skills. And by the way, you know this from the work that you're doing, and this is true in the lab we're sitting in right now. There's an extreme amount of literacy that has to happen in there, numeracy, that is the math side of the world, and then the academic rigor is quite high. And so I guess on the other side of that coin, I think it's a question that I was interested in asking you all is, we're here at a technical school, and I think people have strong beliefs about career tech centers, but they're not always factual, they're strong beliefs. And so as I'm sitting here chatting with you, I'm thinking, students here can absolutely go to college if they so choose. There's not an or option. You don't have to go to technical learning or college. You can do technical learning and college. Do you feel like people misunderstand this world that we're in as we're talking about leadership? I mean, you're student leaders. Do you feel like this world is a little bit misunderstood? I'd love to hear from all of you on that.
I do.
Most definitely.
Yeah,
100%.
I really do think it comes from all different perspectives, though, like you've said. Everyone does think differently about career and technical education, but I think everybody I've heard from does have a strong opinion that somewhat intertwines with each other of the positive outcomes that you get from it, and also the next steps you can take in your life from starting with career and technical education.
I agree. And I think that it also depends on who you're talking to about it, because students who don't attend a technical school, they are going to judge you more for it. But like adults are like, that's phenomenal. Like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you for doing that, and then being able to go on to college and do something that relates to it, but that doesn't have to go completely alongside it. Like, I'm going to go for psychology so I can go be an OT.
Amazing.
Like, but that's not necessarily early childhood. Like, I'm not going to major in early childhood.
But you certainly have the building blocks, right?
Right.
And you certainly have a knowledge about psychology, especially educational psychology,
Right.
in the work that you're doing. And so now I think you're making an informed decision, right? So when I went to college, I just picked a major once I got there, right? You're making a much more informed decision. And something you said that, and I have to hear your voice too, but something you said is stuck in my head, and if I don't get it out, I may forget it forever. There's not a single adult that walks this earth that doesn't wish they had more technical knowledge at some point in their life, right? Like when that light goes on your dashboard on your car, and you don't know how to fix it, right? So you're going to be paying a lot of money for that. This last summer, hottest day of the year, the air conditioning goes out. It'd be really nice if I knew how to fix that, but instead I have to, make that call and pay that money. What about you on the career technical side?
I think going along with what Addie said, like it pretty much depends on who you're talking to. Like Addie said, adults are always so proud, but kids judge you, and I feel like people don't understand like what you go for. You don't necessarily have to major in if you go to college. So they just don't understand the full effects that can go on.
What I love the most is that students leave here with industry credentials that allow you to earn at a higher level than your peers. And so use that or don't use that, but you have options. Your job in high school, your job as a student is to open as many doors as you can, and you're kicking doors open with what you're doing, and you've got experience now, which I think is amazing. I say that we have 21 programs here, but that's not for 21 jobs, and I think you're saying the same thing, right? People think you have to go for early childcare. Well, you're a perfect example, right? You say, I'm going to go for psychology, I want to be OT, right? Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yeah. So it's not 21 programs for 21 jobs. It's 21 programs for 21,000 jobs. Right. And some of them probably haven't even been invented yet, but you're going to have technical skills and employability skills that you've practiced. And that, I think, gives you a competitive advantage over your peers. Mm-hmm. Your turn. I'm sorry, I kind of stole your thunder there.
You're all good. Our next question was just what leads and sets us up for success through CTE?
And I think we've been talking about that a little bit, right? So I think it's opportunities here. There are things that happen here. So the other day, cosmetology, for example, they were at, I believe it's called, it's always referred to as the hair show. I'm certain that I'm getting the specific title wrong. But this is a massive convention for industry professionals in New York City at the Javits Center. Huge. If you've ever been to the Javits Center, it is unbelievably huge. And our students, because they're in this program, got to go there. And then who was there? All kinds of vendors were there. All kinds of stylists were there. They learned about products. They learned about education options. They got to do that, right? And there are peers of yours in your home schools that will eventually become cosmetologists. They will probably have to pay for their license. They'll have to go to a school because they didn't come here, right? So they'll have to go to a cosmetology school. They'll have to pay for their license. They'll have to pay to go to a convention like that, right? It may take them years to have the same experience that some of your peers just got last week. And the networking that came out of that is incredible. So now we've made connections with folks that are going to come to our school, do demonstrations for our students, and we get to build on that, right? So I think that touches on your question, is giving students the opportunity. I got a message, so I told you about the Home Builders Association Career Fair. We were getting messages on Friday afternoon that students were already getting job offers.
That's amazing.
It's amazing, right? And so, again, those are options. Nothing locks you in, but those are options. And I'll tell you another thing that I saw that was fascinating, is this was the first time that I saw an employer where instead of telling you about their company and why you should work for their company on the side of things like you can make this much money or these are the hours that you'll work, it actually had more to do with lifestyle. So it was, here's your training will be all expenses paid at this location. So they try to get students who are there to understand what their lifestyle might look like, how much time off they get, right? Because students in your generation generally are seeking a more balanced lifestyle, more so than long-term career options out of the gate at 17, 18 years old. At least that's something that I see. Do you feel the same way? Do you think that lifestyle is really important?
I think it is really crucial. And
I think it's important to know what you are getting going somewhere, instead of just in the long run.
And so that was the first time I really saw an employer say, okay, if you work for us, it's not how much money you're going to make. It's not how big your office is. It's not a company car. You're going to be your lifestyle. It's going to be how you're going to get balance with home and work. And I thought that was really interesting. And I said to them, I said, you're tapping into what I think resonates with this generation. And they said that they've seen more positive interactions come from that. So it's an interesting piece. So I think exposure to things that many students, I mean, I look at the experience that the two of you had last week. I look at what you're doing in terms of work experience. Like, these are things that certainly I had a job in high school, but it wasn't a co-op job. It wasn't in a pathway. It's not anything that helped me advance my career where I am at now. So had I had the opportunity to have an industry-based credential, maybe I would use it, maybe I wouldn't use it, but I certainly would have been able to go farther faster if I chose to use it.
Yeah. Our next question for you, and we also can answer as well, is what motivates you or pushes you? It could have been something previously that really pushes you and wanted you to get out into where you are now, or something that on the daily that motivates you.
What motivates me professionally, I think is what you're asking, right? Yes. Well, I would say I am, hopefully you can tell, I am so proud of this place. I love my job. I absolutely love my job. And I feel like my job here is to make everybody here love being here as well. I want my teachers to love their jobs. I want to create an environment for them. I think it's incumbent on a leader to set the environment up for success, right? So I want my teachers to feel seen. I want them to have a voice. I want them to have an opportunity to share. I want them to be able to disagree. I want them to be able to pursue things that they have passions about. I want to give them opportunities. Your teacher is a great example, Ms. Haney. I want to give her an opportunity to advocate. I want to give her an opportunity she's speaking at a conference, right? So I encouraged her to apply for a conference. It's a regional career and technical education conference. It's a big deal. Mm-hmm. She gets accepted. I want to support her. If she wants to run her proposal past me, great. If she wants to do a dry run, let's do it. Like, my job, and so I think it comes back to loving what you do, because I think I really, really, really love what I'm doing. I think that career technical education is leading the way in education. I think for a long time, career tech ed was looked at as the other option. And I think now you see how many things students, all the great things happening in a career technical school, how realistic it is, how many options students have, the way we deliver this educational model. I think regular ed, K-12 ed, and that's a world I came from. I was an English teacher, right? But as soon as I came to career technical education, I knew I was never going to leave. And I think regular K-12 ed has a lot to learn from what we do, right? I mean, you look at, we have intensive classes, several hours at a time. That means you have to break up the type of learning that you're doing in a chunk of time. You look at learning from industry experts. You talk about students having the opportunity to really put themselves out there where their work matters. You know, those are things that K-12 ed could really learn from. And so I think that's what motivates me the most, is celebrating our folks here, doing great things for kids. I really want you all to have an amazing experience. I want you to be proud. I want you, when you see me on the streets of New York when I'm chaperoning a hair show in 20 years, to yell out MB on the streets of New York and me know who you are and what you're doing. But I want you to have a great experience here, and I want you to be able to take advantage of all of the things that are happening here. Yep. So, all right, now I'm going to flip it back to you.
So I think what pushes me to like motivates me is I love what I do, like you do. I love what I do. I love working with the kids. I love being that role model for them. So coming into work each day and being able to be that role model for them, having them look up to me as someone that they care for and learning from me, like that's what really motivates me is them being that person that they can come to when they're happy or upset and need a hug. Just being that person that they trust and learning from. That's what really motivates me.
For me, and it depends on what we're talking about exactly, but as a teacher, I say the same thing, just like being there for them, being a role model for them and an emotional comfort for them. But as a Skills USA officer, what motivates me to go to competitions, to do more in leadership roles is just, well, first of all, I decided to do all that because of her. Actually, she decided to be an officer and be a representative last year, and it pushed me to want to be as well. But now it's just like I feel good about it. It like self-motivates me to do that. But also just like knowing the opportunity from doing all of that, like, and seeing, like, I just feel good when I'm doing it. I feel purposeful. I feel like I'm doing something good, and I'm reaching out to more people about it as well, where I'm telling them about CTE and I'm telling them about the opportunities that they can get from taking this pathway or encouraging others to take that pathway. Or at competitions, we tell them, like we're working on social emotional right now, we're telling them the ways that they can better themselves. Doing this podcast, we can show them, like, this is how you can better yourself. You don't have to do something crazy in order to make yourself better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I do completely agree with that, saying you don't need to find something crazy to make yourself feel better, but just the rewarding aspect of it, I think that's what motivates me the most. Even if it's not always the best outcome in what you're doing, it's still rewarding. You still did something, you pushed through, and you found those little bits and pieces to keep you motivated throughout your whole journey. Even if you don't get first place at the end of it, you worked so hard and that the outcome was what you were really looking for, to strive to get motivation for the next year and just keep wanting to push yourself. Another big motivator for me is like friends and all the people around me. Without them, I don't think I'd be as confident as I am.
Sure.
I agree.
Well, and I think that the competitions for CTSOs, so Career Technical Student Organizations, Career Technical Service Organizations, I think the competitions are interesting for exactly what you said, right? So it's not necessarily about winning. You're putting yourself out there. You're doing something that's hard, and you're seeing it through to the end. And again, that's just an opportunity to try something new. Do you feel like the CTSOs, leadership roles in CTSO competitions, have helped you build confidence in yourself and in your education?
100%.
Say more.
So before I got into doing the competitions last year, I never would willingly get up and public speak. I would never willingly do any of that. I wouldn't be like a leader. I wouldn't want to be the person that has all the eyes on them. And doing this and having Brielle and Addie there to push me through it has really given me the confidence to be able to do it again.
I mean, this is something that we talk about all the time between the three of us and between us two.
Yeah.
Because it's so funny. If we didn't meet Brielle, more so if Brianna didn't meet Brielle, because I wasn't friends with Brielle at first, we wouldn't be as confident as we are.
We wouldn't be where we are today.
I was a music performer, so like I'd performed before, but like when it came to speaking, I was not into that at all until I wanted to become a representative, just to go to meeting, like to learn more. And then, as I said, like Brielle deciding to be an officer encouraged me to be an officer this year, and pushing each other to do the competition together. And it's not like other competitions where you're doing it on your own. So it's not as, I feel, pressuring, but I'm still like, I'm still being a leader. I'm still doing something that is pushing me to grow my leadership.
Amazing.
And as much as you're saying, I hoped you guys make it fun and make me want to keep going, and that's what makes me so excited to get other people involved. I've always been like very outgoing, but I think that's just my family that's done that for me. So getting them involved in that competition, I was like, all right, I got you guys. I wrote their names on the board. I was like, you guys are in.
Yeah, she didn't give us a tour.
And if you're really a servant leader, which it sounds like the three of you are, what fills your bucket is giving as much as you can to others, right? So it makes me feel really, really good when other people feel really, really good. I don't know how you are, the worst at accepting compliments. I don't like it. I don't want it. I'm not kidding, there's still a thank you note from Christmas on my desk that I know what it is. It's a thank you note. At least I think I know what it is. I haven't opened it yet because I don't rely on that for my feedback. I prefer to give as much as I can of myself, and that's what rewards and fills my bucket.
I completely agree.
Me too.
I agree with that.
I think it's definitely across the board for us, especially, and I think that's why we kind of chose early childhood, and that's why we like early childhood, is because we're not helping ourselves, we're helping
others.
Little people
Right.
to grow. So our last question for you is just kind of what we've been talking about, is just like how far have each of us come in leadership?
How far
where
have you
did
seen
you start?
us?
When did it start for you that you decided to want to be a teacher, a role model?
Interesting. So what was my path? I think.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is going to sound crazy, but I knew I wanted to be a principal when I was in second grade. And there, without getting too deep into it, there was an event that happened at my elementary school that was not great. And I got to see my principal in a leadership position that, and without knowing all of the details about that the leadership environment at that school at that time, I just know that I got to see that person lead, right? And so I thought that was a pretty noble pursuit, right? And so then from there, that was I think one of the seeds that was planted in my brain. From there, it was a really great teacher. I had, in my 10th grade year in high school, the world's best English teacher. And because of him, and it was a male English teacher, I got to see a male. Most of my teachers up until that point were mostly female. I got to see a male teacher in a class. I connected with the material, I connected with the person, I connected with his style. So for me, that was, I was seeing myself in him as the class was going on. It was a very surreal experience, because that was the first time that I didn't feel like just a consumer in the classroom. I felt like I was engaged at a deeper level in this class, because I had sort of this epiphany about what I was seeing in front of me. And again, I can't say what caused that, right? I don't know if it was the fact that my brain matured and finally I was being more mature with my decision making and less childish, just generally speaking, age-wise, or if there was something magical pedagogically that was happening in that classroom that I still to this day wouldn't have recognized because I was a recipient in there. But I did not feel like just a consumer in that classroom. I felt like I was participating more deeply. It's what I see in these classrooms here between student and teacher, right? I don't see you all downloading information from your teacher. I see you all constructing knowledge together, right? And that's what I really felt like was happening there. So 10th grade, that was the point where, and that teacher also happened to be an advisor for some service organizations. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, so we got to do some service work in the city, work in some soup kitchens, donate our time, or give our time. And he was the advisor there. So then what happens is you build that relationship more deeply with the person, and then you get advised as a human being, right? So it was at that point that then I said, okay, I think I'm going to be a teacher. And then I always had in the background that idea that I wanted to be a leader. And as I reflect, I mean, I'm in education now about 21 years. I think I was a better dean of students. So I went from a teacher to a dean of students to an assistant principal to a principal role to now this role is most like a superintendent. I work with your superintendents most directly. And so I think I was a better dean of students than I was English teacher. I think I was a better assistant principal than dean of students. I think I was a better principal than assistant principal, and now I think I'm a better organizational leader than I was principal. I've always tried to continue to grow in those roles. So, and then I love learning. I have yet to stop learning. As soon as I stopped learning, I went back to school, and now I teach college classes. So for somebody who, classically speaking, probably was not the world's greatest student, there's a 5th grade teacher who probably remembers my name to this day, a 3rd grade teacher the same, maybe a middle school teacher the same. So I was not classically a great student, but I'm also somebody who got my bachelor's degree, got my first master's degree, got another master's degree, got a doctorate, right? So I never really stopped learning. I love to learn. I love dialogue. You can tell I love dialogue. I love dialogue around schools and learning and creating opportunities for teachers to lead and innovate and do great things. So those are the things that drive me. And so I can't say what the recipe was, but I knew for a long time that this was the field that I wanted to be in. So,
sure.
How about you all? Did you want to reflect on that topic at all?
Yeah, I mean, touching on.
How did you end up where you are?
Okay.
How did you end up? Because, I mean, I think interestingly, we were talking before about how there are misconceptions about this place, and so. Yeah. There's a certain level of risk-taking that you have to take, whether it's socially or emotionally or academically, whatever that risk, whether real or perceived, you had to take to say, I'm going to be an MBIT student and I'm interested in these programs. So I guess maybe just talk about what motivated you to make that decision and then how you ended up in the program you ended up in. How about that?
Yeah, so I think what motivated me is I'm the oldest in my family. I've always been around little kids. I've always loved little kids. They've always gotten along with me. I've always gotten along with them. My family calls me the baby whisperer. So that's what motivated me to want to come here when I found out they had an early childhood program, because I wanted to expand that knowledge. And I always knew from a young age that I wanted to be an early childhood teacher and work with little kids. So when I found out that MBIT offered an early childhood program, like I knew that that's where I needed to be, and I knew that's where I wanted to be to learn more about it all.
For me, I mean, I've always known I wanted to work with kids. I mean, when I was in kindergarten, I was telling my mom to be the student, and I was going to be the teacher. Wow. And I wrote out an agenda for us, and that's what we were going to learn for the day. But my family, like, I've had foster children grow up in my house, like, so I've always been around kids, and I've known how to work with them. But in middle school, I had it pretty rough. So like I moved in 7th grade to my school district, so I wasn't really close with anyone. So I was like, if I'm missing half of South, I don't mind. Like it's fine with me. I don't really have that close of friends anyway. And so when whoever came to talk about it at my school, I was like, you know, I never thought I would go to a tech school. Like, I'd been told about it in elementary school, and I was like, no, it's not. I don't have any interest in it. But I was like, there's no point in me taking electives if I know exactly what I want to do when I'm older. So why not go to a tech school where I can learn things that I don't need to go to college for anymore? And I can get ahead in what I want to learn. Why take the extra electives to not use most of what I'm learning? Yeah. So that's what pushed me to go.
Yeah. Also, like I've always wanted, not necessarily just to work with kids, but to see a change. And I think hearing from a younger group how they're doing and their progress and how they're developing just is really important to see. So I work a little bit with like older kids than they do, but I like focusing more on the developing part of it and what needs to be done future-wise. So I like hearing like all of what little kids are saying, changes-wise. You hear all the time, like you ask them what they want to be when they grow up, and they're like, an astronaut teacher. And you're like, huh. And then you have the ones who are like, a blueberry. But you never like, it's always just so random. But you really like need to take into consideration what they're thinking. So I think it's so important to be able to listen. And I've always loved just listening to their perspective and what they think needs to be changed and how they see the future.
It's amazing. My sister asked her young children what they should name their baby that was going to be born soon, and the consensus was remote control. So I know the blueberry line resonated with me. Well, fantastic. Any other questions for me?
We do not.
Not have any.
Thank you so much.
Ambitious is a student-produced project of Middlebucks Institute of Technology. To find out more about MBIT, visit us at www.mbit.org.